After a lifetime of carrying and collecting knives, handling and professionally reviewing thousands of them, 13 months of R&D, prototyping, and testing, and one night being held hostage in a cabin in Montana, I am so stoked to introduce you guys to my first knife design ever, the CIVIVI Yonder. Let me tell you why I think you're gonna dig it. The heart of the Yonder is made up of stories, ideas, and adventures. Before we dive into those, let's take a look at some of the more obvious details. The overall length of the Yonder is 6.62 inches, putting it squarely in the medium knife category. What I really wanted to do was to create a knife that would work for almost everybody. So I went with a really neutral handle shape. If you have a medium hand, like me, you're gonna have a full 4-fingered grip. If you have a smaller hand, your hand will fit really well along the flat of the knife. And if you have like just a big meat paw, the ramping on the back of the handle will be really comfortable, even with a 3.5 finger grip. We did a 2-way reversible recessed pocket clip. Again, trying to make this a knife that could work for anybody out there. And then obviously we and CIVIVI's crossbar lock mechanism on it. The Yonder is actually one of the first knives that CIVIVI has ever done with the crossbar lock. And like everything that we and CIVIVI does, they knocked it out of the park. It's super smooth and super fidgety. The blade comes in at 2.88 inches. I really wanted a nice visual balance between the handle and the blade. For blade steel, we went with 14C28N because we wanted to keep the Yonder affordable, but we also wanted a blade steel that would perform because pretty hard on my knives, and I wanted this to be something that I actually carried. With that 14C28N, that is one of the toughest stainless steels you can put on a pocket knife. It's super easy to sharpen, and it is extremely rust resistant. Because we went with the 14C28N blade, and because of how tough it is, we were able to go with a fairly thin blade and a high flat grind, which makes the Yonder really slicey. And those features, paired with the spay point blade shape, gives you a knife that is really slicey, has some belly in it, and still has a nice piercing tip. At the end of the day, I'm super excited with all of the utility that we were able to pack into such a small package, and a package that I think pretty much everybody can afford, which brings me to the price of the Yonder. They start right around 60 bucks. You're getting a lot of knife for not a lot of money. With the quality that CIVIVI puts out and with the spec sheet that we packed into this thing, I think that it's a bargain no matter who you are. In retrospect, as an adult, my upbringing was a little bit different. So my family lived in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we were like 3 blocks from the Las Vegas Strip. I spent way more time down there than any kid should, had a lot of fun, learned some hard lessons, and grew up a little bit faster, I think. In the summer times, I'd get shipped off to one of my pioneer-bred cowboy grandfather's houses, and I would spend time and work on the open roads and ranges of southern Nevada. It didn't seem to matter if I was spending time in the city or out in the country, I was always wandering, or as my cowboy relatives would say, I was always out yonder. I was 15 the first time I moved out of the house, and from the ages of 15 to 19, I did a lot of train hopping, couch surfing, and hitchhiking. In those rough and tumble travels when I was younger, I stumbled across some unexpected inspiration in an old book by Louis L'Amour called Education of a Wandering Man. Inside this book, he uses the word yonder not just as like out yonder, like a noun, like going out somewhere, but he also uses it as yondering, like a verb. And that was something that stuck with me for a really long time and just seemed to make sense to fit for this knife, this design, and for kind of the ideas that I was putting into it. And to just give you a little taste of this book, because anybody who is into adventure or anybody who is into reading about an amazing life needs to pick this thing up and read it. Let me read you a paragraph out of this book that will show you some inspiration that molded a little bit of the way that I think about things. Spurred by an eager curiosity and desire to broaden his horizon, Mr. L'Amour left home at the age of 15. I hadn't read this book yet, I just done the same thing. And enjoyed a wide variety of jobs, including seaman, lumberjack, elephant handler, skinner of dead cattle, miner, and an officer in the Transportation Corps during the World War II. During his yondering days, he also circled the world on a freighter, sailed a dhow on the Red Sea, was shipwrecked in the West Indies, and stranded in the Mojave Desert. He won 51 of 59 fights as a professional boxer and worked as a journalist and lecturer. He was a voracious reader and collector of rare books. His personal library contained 17,000 volumes. And this is a true account of all of that stuff, and a huge reason why the Yonder has the name Yonder. So with all of those adventures, all of that history, and all of that great inspiration behind the name, it probably doesn't come at a big surprise that the actual design process of the knife was a bit of adventure in and of itself. Just over a year ago, I was in Montana with my good friends Ben and Jamie, and we were working on a project for a knife that Ben had just designed and was getting ready to release. And during the whole time that we're working on his project, and for a few years before that, he was pushing me to put together a knife design of my own. And full transparency, I just kept telling Ben, like, dude, I don't have anything to add. I don't want to create something just to create something. I want to create something that has some meaning. We get through the whole day and Ben's pushing me, he's pushing me, he's pushing me. And then we end up back at Ben's family cabin that night in the middle of nowhere, Montana, in the woods. And Ben tells me, he says, look, we're not going to bed and you're not leaving until we have a sketch of a knife and some ideas around it. And so for the next few hours, we sat around the table, very begrudgingly on my end, and Ben and Jamie pried the design of the Yonder out of me. Everything that you see here isn't exactly how we sketched it up, but it came out of my mind from two really good friends pushing me and making me think about, what do I want to see? What haven't I seen in the industry? What do I think people would like? That's kind of how the design of the Yonder started. I got locked in a cabin in Montana by some good friends and told I couldn't leave until there was something on paper. So I reached out to CIVIVI, I says, hey guys, I've got a drawing, what do you think? You guys interested? 100% they said. They're like, we're in, like no question, send it over, let's figure it out. And so for the next few months, that's what we did. We just were sending emails back and forth, printing 3D prints, checking out how stuff fit in hand, checking out how stuff fit together. And then in early spring, I got an early sample and I was super stoked. There were a couple little things to tweak. And then in June at Blade Show in Georgia, Seth from We Knives, he handed me the coated black micarta handle. And as far as I'm concerned, this is like the true Zach version. And this is the version that has been in my pocket for testing over the last 4 months. To give you an idea, I've been doing some work with Worksharp. I've driven 35,000 miles. I've hiked about 250 miles. I've been to all 50 states. I have been to the coasts of Maine. I've been to the deserts of New Mexico and Texas. I've been to the mountaintops of Utah and Wyoming and Colorado. I mean, I have seen so much of this country, and for almost all of that, this knife has been in my pocket and done every single task that I've asked it to do, and it's performed flawlessly. So I'm super excited about that. And I can say for sure that if you pick up a Yonder, it is going to be a stellar adventure companion. So I've walked you through pretty much everything that has gone into the design of the Yonder. We've talked about specs. We've talked about where the name came from, injecting some of my history and trying to put some meaning behind this thing. We've talked about my amazing friends that helped me to get this design on paper and my amazing friends who have helped me make it over at CIVIVI. But there's one thing that I haven't talked about yet, and honestly, it's probably the most important thing when it comes to this knife in particular, and that's you guys. At the end of the day, I would not have this opportunity if it wasn't for you guys showing up, showing support, and being interested in what I'm doing and in what I'm saying. And I made this knife for myself just as much as I made it for every single one of you. I try to make sure that the price point was where it wouldn't be a barrier for anybody to enter. I try to make sure that it was size and materials that we could all enjoy, that it was a lock type we could all enjoy, and that it was as universal as it possibly could be while still having my signature on it and while still being something unique and something I could be proud of. And that's a big part of everything that I've been doing with you guys over all of these years. I feel the weight of that responsibility. I like to do the best job that I can. I like to be as authentic and honest as I can. And I've always tried to bring that to you guys. And you guys have shown up for it. And it means the world to me. And this is a huge representation of that meaning. So thank you all for this opportunity. Thank you all for tuning in. And you know, at the end of the day, it's been a little while since you guys have seen anything on this channel. I've talked to a lot of you in person. I've talked to a lot of you digitally. We've actually had a lot of people in the industry reach out who are interested to see the channel maybe keep going, maybe have a few more videos, maybe keep doing videos regularly. If that's something you're interested in, let us know down in the comments. If you're interested in seeing some more designs, let us know down in the comments. And to borrow a page from the end of Louis L'Amour's book, Education of a Wandering Man, as one pilgrim to another, I hope to catch you out yonder.